What's going on, everyone? So, ESPN released their win loss projections for the Eastern and Western Conference. And in the Western Conference, the Memphis Grizzlies were ranked number one. Their win loss prediction, they were predicted to win 48.4 wins and finish as the number one seed in the Western Conference. Now, this doesn't sound on the surface that crazy, right? The Grizzlies were second in the league last year in the Western Conference behind the Denver Nuggets, and they finished with 51 wins, where Denver finished with 53. So they were only even 2 games back. So the idea of like, hey, Memphis, kind of taking that next step and going up a little higher and, being the number one seed, I don't think sounds that crazy. And I do think the teams like the Grizzlies, the Kings, those teams are teams that are young, they're hungry, they have something to prove. And that first or second seed means more to them than anything, right? Rather than like a team like the Suns or the Lakers or, even like a team like the Clippers or something where they obviously want to get the home court. They want to have first, second, but they care more about just being healthy, getting into the playoffs. Where a team like Sacramento and the Grizzlies, they look at it as we're extremely young. We have something to prove. Let's go show everybody that we're one of the better teams. But here's the problem that I have with the Memphis Grizzlies and ESPN's ranking having them number one, right? If you want to have them number one, okay, I don't have a problem with that. But again, what was the criteria? If you look at that list, the list was an absolute mess and had like Minnesota number two. Like it's silly. And it doesn't look to me like they took into account that Ja Morant is going to miss 25 games. And on top of that, cannot operate and have any basketball activities with the team, the organization, things like that. He can still work out independently by himself, but that's not the same thing as, building chemistry with your teammates, working in your professional facility with professional equipment and gyms and shooting coaches and all of that stuff to help improve and elevate your game. And then even when he does come back, how long does it take him to get back into the swing of things? And does he mess up the chemistry that the Grizzlies are building? What if the Grizzlies are looking really good? And what if they are the number one seed? It is very possible that Ja Morant comes in and messes everything up. And I know some people are going to make the argument, well, the Grizzlies have been really good without Ja regardless, right? And, Ja has missed 20 plus games in a season before, and Memphis was able to win that. Yes, but a couple things. One, not all at once. And two, they had Tyus Jones, who by most of the metrics, the Grizzlies were actually better with him than with Ja Morant because Tyus was more of a facilitator, right? He could play off the ball more. He was the quality shooter, get after it defensively. He was just more of that traditional point guard. So he could kind of get everyone going, get the offense more fluid, more going, where Ja is kind of more downhill, get ahead of steam, get to the basket, that kind of thing, right? And so when you're talking about Tyus, you're talking about a guy that had chemistry with that roster, provided a different look and role that he was comfortable in, that was in a lot of ways a completely different look than what Ja gives you some quality three-point shooting, and allowed you to kind of weather the storm. Hard-nosed, gets after it, sacrifices body, just hungry out there. He's got, 6'2" height, 6'7" wingspan, so he's got good size, good length for, being a 6'2" point guard. But it's his ability to just make plays and impact the game in different ways. Where Ja can just basically go at will, get to the basket, and go give you 30, right? And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Ja can't dish it out also, right? Last season, if I'm not mistaken, he averaged like 8 assists. He averages like 7 for his career. So he's a guy that can absolutely go and do a lot in that regard. But shooting-wise, he's 30% from 3, which that doesn't help. As far as when you have Baines with the ball, like Tyus, he can go and set guys up and then continue to perform off the ball. Again, he's more of that traditional point guard where Ja is more of like that modern scoring guard, but he's just so dynamic. He can do so much more, right? And again, you look at like Tyus, and his ability to shoot. I mean, he shot 37, 38% from three last year. The year prior to that, he shot almost 40%. Like, the guy just does and gives different looks and that built-in chemistry. And I understand Memphis now got Marcus Smart, right? And the idea is that, like, Marcus Smart will provide some of that toughness. He's a guy that should fit in seamlessly, which I do think that he is perfect for this team, right? He is that Memphis guy. The way that they like to play, hard-nosed, tough, just going to get after it. He can be a leader. He can kind of keep things together while Ja is out and stuff like that. Like, I like the idea of Marcus Smart, especially when you went and lost Dillon Brooks. Obviously, Marcus Smart isn't as big as Dillon Brooks, but I do think that he can still provide a lot of, like, on the defensive side, talking about a defensive player of the year type guy, all of that. But he's not the playmaker, right? Not saying that he can't make plays at all. And again, there's a difference between getting assists and being an actual playmaker, facilitator, right? There's lots of guys that can go and get, 6, 8 assists, right? But then there's guys like Chris Paul and, James Harden who they can make plays. And even to a lesser scale, somebody like a D'Angelo Russell, like guys like that. Even a Drew Holiday, kind of wheeling deals. The vision of the court, what it is. Where Marcus Smart, it's like, oh, well, all I have to do is just pass the ball to Jason Tatum, right? All I have to do is just, pass the ball to Jaylen Brown, and then they're going to knock down a shot or kick it out to an open shooter, rather than actually like, hey, let me operate and run some pick and roll. Hey, let me actually run some offensive sets here. That's what Tyus Jones provided and brought you. Marcus Smart, also, his shot selection is not great at times. He also isn't the three-point shooter. No, the guy's 33% from three-point range. So you don't get the shooting that Tyus gives you. You don't get the type of ability to play off the ball. Like, there's a lot of things that go into that. And Marcus Smart doesn't have the chemistry that has been built over years as Tyus Jones did. So I'm not saying that Memphis isn't going to be good and can't weather the storm. I mean, even like Derrick Rose looked really good in his first preseason game. I think he scored 17 points in like just the first half or whatever, right? So like, I'm not saying that Memphis can't be good and won't be good. They very well could be. But I want people to not really expect it, right? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they struggle. They're a real big anomaly right now, because they do have some new pieces. They are losing some pieces. Brandon Clark's still not going to play, right? Like, there's still things that are going to impact Memphis. They basically lost 4 guys this offseason, right? They're not going to have Ja for 25 games. They got rid of Dillon Brooks. Brandon Clark, he's going to be out, right? Like, you have, and then you add in Marcus Smart. It's just, and then losing Tyus Jones, right? So you lost 3 of your, top 6, 7 guys, right? I mean, because again, Brandon Clark and Tyus Jones were very impactful, right? And Tyus Jones is off the team, and Brandon Clark, he might not play at all this year. We'll see. Time will tell. And then Dillon Brooks was literally your starter, and then you brought in a Marcus Smart and a Derrick Rose. Are they going to be able to supplement that and kind of fill in that gap, fill in that role? It's just, I'm not entirely sold, right? I think Memphis is going to be tough. I think they have the potential to be very good. I wouldn't be shocked in the slightest if they do finish as the 1 seed. I wouldn't be shocked in the slightest if they're still good, even with Ja Morant not in the game, right, for 25 games. And even if he comes back and struggles, it wouldn't surprise me. But I don't think it's as much of a lock as people make it out to be. Because people look at it and just look at the surface and say, oh, Memphis has always been good when Ja doesn't play. And they're not taking into account that, yeah, that's because of Tyus Jones and how good he was on both sides of the basketball, and his ability to run the pick and roll with Triple J, the ability to go and run actual sets and get guys going and be a playmaker, right? And play off the ball at times and all that stuff, right? Like, it's completely different than what it is now. And you're integrating new pieces. You lost a bunch of key pieces. And Ja, when he comes back, how does he look? Just physically, and does he take a while to kind of get in stride? Like, what if it takes him another 10, 20 games to kind of get back to being Ja Morant? At that point, like, who knows where you're at, right? And does Memphis kind of fall apart in the meantime? And I mean, I hope not. Like, I really hope, God, I really hope not. But does Ja do anything stupid again? And we can't say that he won't, because we were all saying that after the first incident. And guess what? Did it again. I mean, you would imagine and hope that after 2 times, like, you'd learn it and you'd figure it out. But he's going to have a big, bright spotlight on him. He's going to have a target on his back to an extent. People are going to be watching him like a hawk, waiting for him to do something stupid again. Does that kind of become a narrative that lingers and rests over the Grizzlies? It's just, how does the locker room get disruptive? Right? Like, there's a lot of questions. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? Do you agree with me? Yeah, like, Memphis, don't sign them up yet? Do you think, like, no, they'll be fine, they'll be good, number 1 in the West, ESPN's right? How do you feel? Whatever your thoughts are, love to hear it. Let me know down in the comments.